Hello. Oh, there we go, a little bit of interaction, that's good. So I'm a performance coach and I work with Incredible Thinkers, and I was going to describe to you what I actually do, but I thought I'd use my children to describe it for you. We went skiing last week and we shared a chalet with another family, and at the first dinner, you know, you get round, it's the staple thing we do is people say, well, what is it that you do? And I said, I'm a performance coach. And I must have just put a mouthful of food in at that point. And my son piped up and said, I bet you don't know what that is, to the rest of the table. And they said, no, not really. And my daughter, who's 10, then put her head up and said, he gives you a checkup from the neck up. Right? And then my son, who really likes to wind me up, said, more than he should. And then my daughter, it was like a double act, said, at home as well. But we have red and yellow cards now, and we show them to Daddy when he starts to coach us. Right, children? So that's a little bit about what a performance coach does, is I give people a checkup from the neck up. Okay. Now, I had the real privilege of speaking at the Shard in December at Orlo's last roadshow, and I did joke with Stuart about the size of the stage. So at the Shard, the stage was about this big, and I said I normally like a stage that I like to be able to walk about on. So he rang me last week while I was skiing and said, Matt, we've got a huge stage for you, so you must use it. So I thought, what could I do to use this stage? So I thought what we do is a live coaching session with someone in the audience. So if you'd like to check under your chairs, one of you has a star. No, I'm only joking. Look at that. You weren't thinking, wow, I'm going to get a free session here. You think, oh my God, he's going to make me come up on this big stage and have a live coaching session. Okay, we're not going to do that. Okay, but what I am going to do is talk to you about emotions, the power of emotions and their role in the workplace. So, I'd just like you to take a few moments to reflect on what emotions you may well be feeling right now. Just take a few moments. Maybe you're feeling excited, curious. Not if you've heard me speak before, you're not. Eh? Now, take a look at the people who are sat next to you. Take a good look at them and get some sense of what emotions do you think they're feeling. Come on, look at them. Now, at this point, I suspect that some people might be feeling a little bit anxious or a little bit uncomfortable, or some people may be very excited and we probably should move on. Okay, but what I am going to do is change the temperature in the room, hopefully, and get some different emotions flowing around the room. So I'm going to invite you all now. I'm inviting you, but I'm kind of counting on you to do it. To all stand up if you would. And I'd like you to find a partner. Right? Yeah, not a life partner, don't worry about it. Yeah, I'm not a dating agency. I'd like you to find a partner, and I'd like you to turn and face them. So pair up and turn and face a partner. Okay. Just, okay, that's brilliant. Looking at that person, just for the next 30 seconds to a minute, is just say something really positive you notice about them. So go for it, 30 seconds. You're struggling, aren't you? Yeah. Okay. If I can stay in your pairs. I mean, we could carry on talking, it feels like, for such a long time. So stay in your pairs. Now, have any of you, like me, when you were growing up, played aeroplanes in the school playground? Yeah? Okay, like that. So what I'd like you all to do, you might need to find a little bit more room, is to make like an aeroplane with your arms. Come on. Okay? In your pairs. And now what I'd like you to do is to lean slightly to the left. Yeah? Yeah? And now go in for a big hug. Right, if you can all sit down now, please, that's great. Wow. A fun exercise, but really, really interesting to note what's happened to your emotions and the energy levels in the room in a couple of minute exercise, isn't it? So, researchers say there are 7 core emotions, human emotions. There are many, many, but there are 7 core ones, okay? They are happiness, sadness, surprise, fear, anger, and then what are the last 2? As my mind goes blank. Disgust and contempt. 7 core human emotions. But why on earth am I talking to you about them today? Okay, this is the reason. Because 100% of your behavior is influenced by your emotions. 100%. Not 90%, not 95%, 100%. So does it not make sense that if we want to have successful organizations, give a great customer experience, that we have better understanding and control of our emotions? We can make it interactive. Yes, Matt, would be great, yeah, in that regard. It would make sense, wouldn't it, in that regard? Thank you. So let's talk a little bit more about that. So emotions are at the heart of all the work I do with individual clients and in organizations. And I just wanted to share a recent story of how that plays out. So I've been working with a big company for about 3 years. And about 12 months ago, they went to market to find a new sales director. The new sales director was brought in with a real great track record, and in the first 6 months had a really, really positive impact. Great impact on short-term results, processes, strategy conversations, etc. However, then, after that, the CEO noticed that that individual's team wasn't quite the same as it was. It had lost some of its fizz and energy. And indeed, one of the longest-standing members of that team, someone the organisation held real value over, left to work for a competitor. So the CEO said to me, Matt, you work with us, go and spend some time with this individual. So I did. And I had an hour with him, only an hour. He only had an hour in his diary for me, right? And I spent an hour with him. And after that hour, I got some sense of what was wrong. I felt like I'd run a half marathon. I'd been in a mixed martial arts contest. It was one of the most draining experiences I've ever had. And I got some real sense of the fact that this guy had no understanding of his impact on others. Does that make sense? Any of you relate to that? People are nodding in the room now, yeah? I'm going to ask for names in a little while, yeah? Right, yeah? But people are nodding in the room. And what was even more interesting is he didn't ask me one single question about me. Not one single question about me and any interest in my emotional state or anything like that. So, but I find that fascinating because when we talk about each other in emotion, in organizations, we talk in a very emotional way. So I do a lot of 360-degree feedback when I start to work with people, and I wanted to share with you some of that emotional language that gets played back. So, he is really, really enthusiastic. Yep, yeah. Anybody here work with enthusiastic people? Yeah, yeah. You guys in the room, I can feel your energy. I'm going to use the stage. All right, yeah, and stuff like that, yeah. She's really passionate, a really passionate person. Again, very emotional language that's being used there. And that team, you've got to work with them, they're infectious. So I'm sure we can apply all of those things to all of you. So that's literally what's been captured directly from 360-degree feedback. Should we flip that coin over, though, and share with you, though, from a negative emotional stance, some of the words that have been described, and these have actually been captured on 360-degree feedback. She's toxic. Oh, not a good word, yeah? But anybody ever work with anyone who's toxic? Okay, no one in this room, though, yeah? If you sat next to them, just be careful, yeah? A horrible word, but he's cancerous. His impact on this organisation is cancerous, yeah? His behaviour is like that. That's shocking, isn't it? How would you feel if you read 360-degree feedback about you that said that on? And then the final one is mood hooverer. That was actually written on a 360-degree feedback form I got, yeah? She's a mood hooverer. Anybody know any mood hooverers? Oh, good. We're in the right place, aren't we? So that is all three. So we talk about emotional language, about each other, but sometimes we're not emotionally intelligent enough and emotionally aware, and we don't really think as overtly as I think we should about emotions in the workplace. Now, emotions, yeah, are contagious. They can be positively contagious or they can be negatively contagious. Let's talk a little bit more about that. So, how many of you felt the urge to yawn then? Yeah? It's not just my presentational style, is it? Yeah? When you see that picture or you see me yawn, you feel a natural urge to yawn. Why is that? And if you didn't yawn now, I guarantee you've been in the presence of somebody recently and sat there and they've yawned and you've yawned as well, haven't you? Well, you know what that is? That's called mirroring. Human beings, we have a natural desire to mirror. But here's the thing. A yawn is a temporary thing, isn't it? It's a short-term thing, whereas emotions behave like a virus. They hang around for longer and they infect you far more deeply. Does that make sense? Happiness. Happiness is infectious. Did you know that if you spend time with happy people, you are 25% more likely to be happy yourself? Spend time with people like Stuart and you're on to a winner. No. So, the question I'd ask you is, do you make a conscious effort to spend time with happy people? But you say, I can't choose who I work with. Well, let me put it a different way. Do you make a conscious choice to create an environment where you work for people to be happy and smile? I find it fascinating when I get invited to work with a new company. I always ask to sit in their reception and watch what goes on. I look at the receptionist, he or she. I look at the people walking around the organisation, and then I go to whatever office space and I move around and I sit there and I just observe. Do you think I can tell everything about the organisational culture just by observing? And so could you, because there's nothing special about what I do. What would I see if I sat in your organisation and watched? Would I see happy, smiley people or not? Something for you all to reflect on. Okay, but here's the thing. Negative emotions are far more contagious than positive ones. So if you are someone who gets angry, if you are someone who shouts, if you are someone who shows fear and anxiety in the organisation, that lasts and hangs around far more deeply and longer than positive emotions. So you can be happy one day, even 4 days of the week, but if on one day of the week you're angry, you shout and you show those emotions, it has a far more lasting effect from that. I can see a lot of you reflecting on that in terms of where we are in the workplace. So here's the thing. I wanted to tell you my story now around emotions. I became emotionally intelligent at a very young age. So my father was a very strong man, very dominant and very opinionated. Now, at his best, my father could be passionate, could be enthusiastic, and could be infectious. And he was an amazing guy to spend time with. But here's the thing. He wasn't at his best very often. More often than not, my father was toxic, cancerous, and a mood hooverer. God, he was a mood hooverer. I talk about him in the past tense, so I lost my father a few years ago. But he was a mood hooverer. And he had a dramatic impact, though, guys, on my family and our lives. So there was my mother, my brother, and myself. And I became emotionally intelligent at a very, very early age, observing his emotions and the emotions impact he was having on my mother particularly, and also the impact on me. I can still tell you now that if I think about when he used to put his key in the door, right, I used to be, what mood's Dad going to be in tonight? Is he going to be infectious, passionate, or is he going to be toxic and cancerous? Yeah. Now, I left home, I went to university, not Loughborough, yeah, Sheffield, yeah, never beat them at rugby. But then, in fact, you reminded me, I sat there and I said, well, you're still not beating, Sheffield are still not beating Loughborough at rugby, yeah. And then, so I went to Sheffield and I studied, and I left university and I went to work for Marks & Spencer as a graduate management trainee. And it was at that point I consider myself that I got my first boss, Mr. Bailey. Mr. Bailey, not Chris. Mr. Bailey, well, yeah. He had his own manager's dining room, and he used to order tea with his foot with a little buzzer on the floor, yeah, back in 1990, yeah. And I didn't have social media to check out Marks & Spencer before I joined, yeah. So Mr. Bailey was my first boss. And it was really interesting. At that point, I started to discover that it wasn't just my father who had a significant impact in terms of his emotions, but it was Mr. Bailey. And my family was replaced by the store team I worked with. And the key in the door was replaced by Mr. Bailey on his morning walk rounds in the store. We'd all be stationed by our post. I was running the food section, and we'd wait there. What mood was Mr. Bailey going to be in? Was he going to be passionate, enthusiastic? Had he been to the toilet and read his paper? Yeah? Or was he going to be angry, annoyed, and you can all relate to that, can't you? So here's the thing I want you all to think about is this. There are lots of Mr. Baileys out there, but there are also lots of great people as well. And I want you to reflect on the type of person you're going to be. So there's one person who has more impact on emotions in the workplace than anyone else, the boss. Put your hand up if you are a boss. I deliberately haven't said leader because I'd like you all to say that you are leaders. But keep your hands up, keep your hands up, right? Just so you know, they're not really up, they're apologetically up, right, at the end of the day. So put your hands up if you're a boss, right, at the end of the day. If you don't want to put your hand up, don't. Okay, right? Keep your hand up if you're a great boss. Oh, we don't like to do that, do we? Okay, right. So, well done for those of you keeping your hand up, and I make no judgment about those people who put their hands down. Thank you, right, in that regard. Something for you all to reflect on, though, is whether you are a great boss and how you make that assessment, but that's for another time. Yeah. So are you a great boss? Because here's the thing. People don't leave organizations, they leave bosses. So I'd like to offer you 3 things in the remainder of my time that could make a difference to the emotional health and hygiene in your organizations. Now, there are some amazing brands in here this morning. I've been inspired by the 3 speakers this morning already, and I see some of the list of brands there, and I can feel your energy already, and I think, wow, you'll be doing some cool stuff already. And if you want to share some of that cool stuff you're already doing with me in the breakouts or at lunch, I'd love to hear from you. But I'm going to share with you, based on my experience, 3 things that I believe you can do to create more positive emotions in the workplace. Are you up for that? Yeah, okay. About 12% of the audience interacted then. But that's enough for me to push on. Okay? Right? So, backbiting. Backbiting is defined as talking negatively about someone who is not present. Talking negatively about someone who is not present. So, based on that description, stand up if you think backbiting goes on in your organization. What we do get is what I call, in psychological terms, the sheep effect when I ask questions like that. But looking around the room, pretty much everybody is stood up. So this applies to all of you. But I would say if there's one thing to take away from today, take away what I'm going to talk to you about right now. If you could sit down, that'd be great, please. So backbiting is talking about somebody negatively, right, who is not present. Now, I want to talk to you about Socrates, the philosopher, not the famous Brazilian footballer. Yep, showing my age there, 1982. There's a few people smiling. That feels good. I'm knocking my microphone there. Right. Socrates had a very simple test to stop people backbiting, and it's what he called the triple filter test. So when anyone would come and talk to him and want to talk to him about someone else who wasn't present, before he did that, he would say this to them. He'd say, first and foremost, can you say what you're about to tell me is unequivocally true? Think about that in your own lives. How often do people come and talk to you about other people, about something they've heard third or fourth hand? So that's the first filter you used to apply. Is it unequivocally true? The second one was, can any good come of this? So about what you're going to say, is there any good can come out of this? Can we get a positive income? Is it going to have a good impact on the person or the situation we're talking about? That's the second filter. Think about that. How often do you just tittle-tattle around things which really are not going to lead to any good? And the third thing is there any use to this? Is it useful? When you apply that triple filter test to some of the conversations you have in the workplace, guys, I think you'll find that it won't get past number 1, it certainly won't get past number 2, and it is highly unlikely to get past number 3. So if it doesn't pass them, don't have it. Now, I thought it'd be helpful to identify the 2 main groups of people who backbite in organizations based on my extensive research. Is that okay? The first group is men. Yeah? And the second group is women. Right? So we all do it, don't we? It's not exclusive. You can't break it down. Everybody has a propensity to backbite and talk about other people in a way that really, quite frankly, isn't helpful. So here's my first offering to you. Go back to your teams and your organizations and say to them, share the definition of backbiting. Ask them if they believe that backbiting goes on in the team, and then talk to them about the triple filter test and ask for a visible commitment from them to eliminate backbiting. Backbaiting, that's a different workshop. Right, yeah? Okay. Backbiting for a month. I guarantee you it will have a dramatic impact on the emotional well-being and energy. Because this morning, I didn't ask you to say something negative about the person you saw, did I? I asked you to share something positive, so I just want you to reflect on that. So go back and make a commitment to eliminate backbiting. Now, I want to talk to you about the types of people I meet in organizations, right, okay? Everybody's going, yeah, right? The drains. The drains in organizations, they're the people who suck the life out of every conversation, out of every room and everything. You all look at you, right, yeah? You know them. Now, I would say this to you. Drains are one of the biggest enemies to productivity. You can invest millions in systems and processes. And we talked about some of those incredible things you're doing with social media and technology. But if you have drains in your organization, it's a real problem. And here's what drains do. They get together and they have pity parties. They send out invites, right? Send out invites and they host them and they attend them and they get these big pity parties and they get bigger and bigger. And pretty soon, you're not doing the really cool stuff that you need to do in organizations. Would you agree? Have you attended a pity party this week, any of you? That's a yes then, Matt, right? Okay, yeah, something for you to reflect on. So, I would say this to you. Don't tolerate drains and don't be a drain, but be the change you seek. So, make a conscious effort not to be a drain yourself, because the second types of people I meet in organizations and the ones I really want to spend time with are these, radiators. Radiators radiate energy, warmth, and you want to spend time with them. You're a radiator, aren't you? I can tell, yeah, right? Yeah. Okay? You want to spend time with them, and they make a significant difference, and they give other people the warmth and energy to get cool stuff done. Does that make sense? But here's the thing. Being a radiator is a conscious choice. You have to get out of bed every morning and say to yourself, today I am going to be a radiator. If you'd have met me 10 years ago when I did a proper job, yeah, I could be a drain. Didn't take much to tip me into being a drain. I have for many years now made a conscious effort to get out of bed every morning and say, today I am going to be a radiator. And the second thing I offer you is this, to be a radiator is, be 3 times more positive in everything you say and do than you are negative. That's a rule that's helped me become a radiator. If anyone would like to warm their hands on me over lunch, feel free, okay? Now, the third thing I'd like to offer you is this. But before I do that, let me ask you this question. Put your hands up, and properly this time, or I'll make you stand up, right, yeah? Put your hands up if you have a best friend. If you haven't got a best friend, think about the person you hugged earlier and talk to them at lunch, right? Okay, right, yeah? Put your hands down. In all seriousness, if I ask you the question then, put your hand up if you think you are your own best friend. Yeah, you looked around then, though, because break ranks, be a lion, right? Yeah, but also, not many people have put their own hand up. So here's the thing I think is important. If you want to have great emotional intelligence, spend time with yourself, get to know yourself, and become your own best friend. And then you'll do the things you need to do to look after yourself, because you would do anything for your best friends, but you probably don't do the same things for yourselves. And a little bit of a tip for you is, we tend to traditionally think of ourselves as having 2 spaces in life, home and work. We transition from home to work, from work to home, and back and forth. I believe, and psychologists believe, there is actually a third space. And the third space is that space that allows you to successfully transition from home to work and be at your best. And the third space is a self-indulgent place where you need to be selfish, because you know they're the things that that's the space where you do the things that help you be the best that you can be. For me, the third space is the gym, reading, and Manchester City. Yeah, okay, right, yeah. I go to Manchester City with my son. It's a really, really important experience. It's less about the football, or it is magic to watch at the moment. It's less about the football. It's about my experience with my son. I love knowledge. I'm perpetually curious. So actually, I immerse myself in reading and stuff. If I don't read for 3 or 4 days and I haven't got new information, I feel like I'm shriveling up inside. And the gym is my thing. I run, I lift a few weights, and it just helps me be at my best. And you'll all have your own things. Think about what your own third space is and what is in there. And when you find your third space, contract with other stakeholders so they understand that you're not suddenly going to go away and be hugely selfish. So my wife and my kids and my friends know what's in my third space, and my wife knows that going to the gym is important to me, and that going to Manchester City is important to me, and that getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning, even though it wakes her up, and going and reading in my little garden office is important to me. Does that make sense? So when you're making changes in your life, always recruit your stakeholders. Don't just go away and change. So there's 3 things I've offered you there. See, the thing is, I believe there's a better way. I'm idealistic, I'm a dreamer. Somebody talked to me earlier about Simon Sinek, who is an absolute idol of mine, but I absolutely believe that there is a better way, and I think the world is changing at such a pace, it's hugely exciting. Now, it's too late for Mr. Bailey, it's too late for my dad, but it isn't too late for any of us. So why don't we all go out there and be the leaders we wish we had? Thank you very much.
Cheers, Matt. That's fantastic. Any questions from Matt
No,
as he roams the stage? Okay, one here. Just wait 1 second for the microphone. Let us know where you're from. It's okay to hear now.
Matt, I put my hand up about being a great boss, and the reason that I would think I was, because I'm soft and weak. I'd love me as a boss. Get away with murder. That's the only reason I said great. Being happy and such, like, is there any evidence on how that increases productivity? And or are we just going to work being happy and having a better time?
Okay, so you could Google that and you could find very many different variations. I'd say that a happy workforce can be 75% more productive is the latest research I've seen. Yeah. So if you want some hard numbers to it, Google it and find a number that works for you. But you all instinctively know. I think metrics are important, but in my space, people always talk about return on investment metrics. You know that a happy, smiley workforce is more productive, don't you?
I'm not actually.
Okay.
The better mood I'm in at work, probably the less productive I am, to be honest with you. I get distracted a bit easy.
Okay. Maybe we need to have a chat about whether you're a great boss or not. But thank you.
Any more questions? One at the front here on the right-hand side.
I'm reading your body language. I'm not going to like this question, am I?
I don't even know what I'm going to ask you. Yeah, I'll try and articulate it so it makes sense. How do you know if you're a drain if no one's going to tell you?
Okay, it's a great point. So one of the most important things for any of us to grow is to get feedback. Is that fair? Now, I think 360-degree feedback is a really convoluted way of doing it, but actually it fits the purpose of what I do in some organisations, and it needs that level of gravitas to get people to open up. But the first thing I'd say to all of you is, whether it's in your personal lives or at work, just ask people for feedback. But here's the thing. If you suddenly go back and start asking people for feedback, if you don't have that trust, that psychological safety, then you're not going to get a feedback of high value. So I've worked for bosses that have been on a course and come back and said to me, Matt, can you give me some feedback? I'm like, no way, I'm terrified of you, right? Yeah, right? No way am I going to tell you what's real. So the only way really to understand whether you're a drain or not is to get feedback, or step back and observe the impact you have on others. Because we're all like stones being dropped in a pool, and the ripples go out far and wide, and those ripples can be positive or they can be negative. So I would say the first thing is, if you're not in a position to get feedback, step back and just observe the impact of your behaviour.